Awesome. Well, this has been a great session. How have you guys liked it so far? Wonderful, right? We've heard a lot of exciting things. I just want to reiterate what Raj, Nadeem, and everybody else said, is that none of this is possible without our exceptional customers, one of which who joins me right here, Matt Newman. You're here from Salt Lake City, isn't it?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah?
Thank
You know how you can tell that the two of us are the two non-Bay Area people in the room, that we're the only ones wearing blazers. We missed the hoodie and vest memo, but awesome. Well, thank you. Just tell us a bit about your role with Adobe.
Okay. So I've been with Adobe about 3 years. I'm from the Workfront business unit, which Adobe acquired Workfront about 3 years ago, right as I was coming on. Workfront is a work management tool, so you can think of project or task management. And Adobe purchased us because we basically help kind of plan and orchestrate marketing campaigns.
That's awesome. And just tell us a bit about some of the types of users that leverage Workfront on a day-to-day basis.
So we typically have a lot of big enterprise customers. You can think of like T-Mobile or Coca-Cola or some of these big logos, and they have big marketing departments, very complex operation of orchestrating a whole marketing campaign or marketing activities. So they use Workfront to set those all up and kind of manage them end to end of the workflows, and then ultimately measuring how marketing campaign did and what was the ROI of a campaign, and should we run that marketing campaign again, essentially.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, we've heard a lot today, and Raj sort of started us off with the three core tenets of SingleStore applications being speed, scale, and simplicity. One thing that stood out to me about what you're doing at Adobe is the sheer scale that you and your customers are operating on. So just tell us a bit about that.
So we have about 3,600 enterprise customers, about 500,000 monthly active users of our application, and what ends up happening is we have to. We're trying to provide customer-facing analytics for our users so they can run reports and dashboards and all that kind of stuff. And ultimately what that means is we have to join several tables that are 5 or 6 billion rows to do things like custom fields and authorization. And we end up having about 10 billion records that we have to join together. And those queries are slow, and they take a lot of computing power.
We're slow.
We're slow, yeah. It's about 70 terabytes of data and 250 tables. And really our target is to get under 5 seconds to basically copy data from Postgres into SingleStore. And then also the queries need to be serviced in under 5 seconds to have a good user experience.
Awesome. Very cool. And I imagine that those 60 to 70 terabytes of data are growing very quickly as well, so you need a platform to sort of scale.
Definitely, yeah. That we have about 20% growth a year.
Wow. Very cool. Awesome. So, you and I have talked quite a bit about your journey to SingleStore, starting with, as you just mentioned, Postgres, and then moving on to that. A lot of what we find from our customers here at SingleStore is that people come to us having already built an application, sort of bare bones, using what they know. And a lot of times that's MySQL, a lot of times that's Postgres, could be other databases that are open source out there. And then as those sort of single box systems grow and grow and grow with data volumes, with low query latency requirements and concurrency, you sort of hit choke points in the application. And I think your story is not all too different from that. So maybe you just tell us a little bit about your journey starting with Postgres.
Okay, so basically we had a legacy or classic reporting application that, like you say, over time just got slower and slower. Some of our customers were experiencing 5-minute query times, and then it would time out. And it's this terrible feeling, like when you hear a customer say that, like, I waited until it timed out in the browser, and then I just hit refresh, and then it actually works the second time I run the query, and like, oh. And so, really slow and poor customer experience. Then we actually launched, our first attempt was to use Elasticsearch as our report, like kind of real-time analytics reporting solution. As we scaled that up, it was kind of working, but it was a lot of work to flatten the data and get it in an index the way you wanted it. It was really clunky ETL or transformation into that because we have this really kind of complex hierarchy, and then the price performance was bad. I mean, we had customers, as we scaled that up, it just was really apparent that it wasn't going to work, like cost-wise and everything. And it was fairly fast, but not near as fast as what we ultimately landed with SingleStore. So that's when we started to evaluate SingleStore and saw it as a viable replacement of these efforts.
I think it's a very interesting point that you bring up, and something that we see a lot in the field is it's not just price when you're picking a database, and it's not just performance, right? It's the ratio between the two, and it's sort of how those two balance out each other. And we see here at SingleStore that many of our customers have selected us, and that's the sort of main selection criteria. At the top of the list is I want to be performant, but at a price that's palatable and that's reasonable, and that will scale to those 20%, 30%, 40% year-over-year growth metrics that you're looking to hear.
I will say, it's not on the slide, but we also considered Snowflake and Databricks and some other options, but they're just pretty slow ingestion and slow queries and not really built for the high concurrency type of environment we're looking at. So.
I didn't pay to say that, so. Awesome, cool. So speaking of, as we talked a bit about sort of the fast interactive queries that you required from your customers really required. Tell us a bit about sort of what they're asking you for and what you ended up achieving with SingleStore from an interactive query and speed perspective.
Okay, so like I was saying, this isn't my first rodeo. I've been at a few companies where this is always the ask from the customer. Can we have our query, can we get our data in really quick and query really fast on it? And then there's always this big compromise with product and like, is 10 minutes fast enough, or is it an hour or 2 days, and then can the queries be 20 seconds or 30 seconds? And it felt like SingleStore was the first breath of fresh air that wasn't a compromise. It was like, it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's exactly what customers want. The data in there fast, and I can get it out fast, like within a few seconds. Snappy user experience. So a lot of times our users are not just running reports, but they're actually building the reports. The whole purpose of this was kind of to democratize reporting, so not just administrators built reports, but anybody could. And so when a user's in there building a report, they don't want to wait 10 or 15 seconds every time they make a change on the report. So they want it really snappy and interactive. And then, like we said, the freshness, it's coming from Kafka, so it's within seconds. So if a user doesn't want to think like, oh, I created a project or a task, and then I have to wait 10 minutes for it to get into the reporting tool, like they want it there within seconds.
There's something else interesting on the slide that I think you and I discussed last week, which was Workfront and many other SaaS applications that we see in the market started as apps that had sort of predefined dashboards, right? It was, here are the 10, 15, 20 metrics you're going to see, and that's what you get out of the box with the product. And now what we're seeing in the industry is that more and more SaaS apps are giving the user the ability to define the dashboard, the user the ability to define the metrics that they want to see relevant to their business. And I think that's a huge part of this for you as well, and where you guys are sort of going with the platform.
Yeah, definitely. Ad hoc reporting, that was always a scary thing in our world. Like, what am I going to do when the user comes up with some crazy query that I didn't predict? But the reality is that's a customer need. They want that query answered, and we're even moving into the future where they use natural language and they can ask all kinds of crazy questions that we can't predict. So to me, that's the future, and to build on a platform that's really performs well and answer the queries at the time the customer expects. That's an amazing platform I see in SingleStore.
Yeah, and you've heard all about all the sort of new SingleStore features today. There are things like projections, for example, where you can sort of make the schemas dynamic, which will play a huge part in that ad hoc reporting in the future. So you can be ready for anything the customer sends you.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Cool. So maybe just tell us about, these are your metrics, right? Built on SingleStore. So I'd like you to kind of tell us about some of the impact that you've seen.
Okay. So yeah, definitely we've achieved what we set out to do. We said under 5 seconds ingestion and 5 seconds query time. We're getting, the average is less than a second, but even the most complex queries are only a couple seconds. Performance is amazingly better than Postgres. 300x in some cases, from minutes to seconds. And then lower total cost of ownership. Like we said, there's this ratio of we're able to have pretty reasonable sized single store instances that are predictable cost and spend, and also getting everything we want.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, 300x improvement is pretty impressive. I bet the users are confused sometimes, wondering why it's so fast or how it got so fast.
Yeah. They're not asking to slow it down though.
Yeah, as Raj mentioned earlier, right? It's like those are you can bet on that for sure. Awesome, cool. So you've heard, everybody here, we've all heard quite a bit about generative AI being the next frontier today. You are a very sort of innovative mind, and within Adobe and your organization, we all know Adobe is a very, very innovative company. I'm sure that you all are at the forefront of this as well. So tell us a bit about what you're doing with Gen AI.
Okay. Well, so as you know, there are all kinds of Gen AI projects at Adobe, as you can imagine. In particular, in Workfront, we have some really cool ones. One of them is this like I was saying, our whole goal is to help you orchestrate and run a marketing campaign. So a lot of the content that ends up in a marketing campaign, you can actually generate using, the text, the marketing copy from, marketing briefs and whatnot. And then also even the images using like Firefly, we can generate a bunch of images that end up as an ad or a part of the marketing campaign. The assignee recommendation. So when you're on a task or a project, in the past, it's just been this like autocomplete. You write someone's name, and it gets annoying because you might have to assign 20 tasks. And this smart assignment uses all these factors and basically will recommend who to assign the task to. And it's a lot. Our customers are loving that one. And then also a smart form generator. So when you can in Workfront, you can actually create custom fields and custom forms. And so now it'll recommend, you should probably build a form that does this for your marketing campaign, and maybe these 5 fields on it, because you're often needing to ingest that data from your users.
I like the AI-driven recommendations on who to give the tasks to. I would just pass all my work to other people.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any parting thoughts or anything you'd want to share before we wrap up, Matt?
I'm just excited for all the new features that have been announced today.
Yeah.
Like we said, projections and branching a database and the new vector improvements. I think, like we're saying, that I have this comfort that we're building on a platform that's going to keep meeting all these needs that keep arising that we can't even predict.
Awesome, wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.